Welcome back. This is a KTN News special as we focus on the Saccos in the country in the wake of the Covid-19. How are Saccos supporting members? What are the challenges Saccos are facing? And what are the opportunities into the future? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take your questions. We are having quite an interesting set of questions flowing in thick and fast on our SMS platform as well as on our Twitter platform. And I'll be taking a few questions from Twitter, and we'll also be taking some questions from our SMS platform. There's a question here from Blamuel Ndiema, who's asking, what's the tenure period of directors to serve on any Sacco? Some directors serve for life. I don't know what my panelists will have to say about that. Ben Shaw Ayeko is asking, banks have been quite proactive in issuing moratoriums and rescheduling loan repayments for their customers to help them cope with the effects of the reduced incomes during the COVID-19 pandemic. What are Saccos doing to ease the loan burden on members? I believe this was answered. Let's take a few more questions as we can scroll down. All right, there's a question here from Edu Wakakamega. Thank you, Edward. How can I transfer my capital shares? Because I have been trying all channels, but I have not succeeded. I was in Nyati Sacco. I'd left in 2017 because I joined another Sacco. Thank you, Edward. And maybe one last one, then we open it up to our panelists to quickly respond. Philip is asking, we as members of Metropolitan Sacco feel shortchanged as when it went bankrupt, Sasra went silent on managers who mismanaged it. Well, gentlemen, clearly what we are getting so far in these questions speaks to issues around regulation and governance. And perhaps I'll be opening it up to any of you to respond where you can. Perhaps Dr. Hassan, you can go first.
All right, those are very interesting questions. A majority of them, I think, would be addressed by the directors seated here. But I'd like to paint a picture for you, Gina. How many banks have collapsed in the last 11 years? And then let's do a quick percentage and a math on that. And then look at the Saccos. Let's look at the deposit-taking Saccos. How many of those have gone under? So does it mean that we in the Sacco sector are worse off than anyone else in the financial industry? I tend to think not. Of course, in every grouping of Saccos, there are different kinds of Saccos you get there. There are those who have very, very good governance. There are those who are trying to reach that perspective of governance. But when I look at Sasra, what they're doing, they're actually following the best practices, the best guidelines that are there, international practices. From IFRS 9, we've actually implemented that. When you go to things like using of PALs, using of Campari, using all of those key ratios that are applied in the banking sector, the core ratios, the core capital ratio. A good example would be if you're to look at Stima Sacco in the year 2011, our core capital was about 600 million shillings only. Today, you're talking about 6 billion. So how many banks can actually say that? Okay. And it's also a very important point, and maybe it's something I need to point out very clearly, is that even in this panel as we sit here, you'd find that out of the Saccos that are represented here, each of us, I'm talking about each, not combined, each of us is probably larger, not probably, is actually larger than 23 banks in Kenya. So there's this misconception that a Sacco is a very small institution, very back office, has very mundane governance structure. It's not really true. Saccos have a lot of money.
Sure.
Stima Sacco, as an example, is almost hitting an asset base of 39 billion Kenya shillings. So we have the proper structure in place. The proper governance structure is actually there to adhere to that. All so right. It's a very open-ended question. I think it depends on what part of the spectrum you are. But for us, I think we're in the better part of that spectrum.
Quite a solid response there. Mr. Mategwa, you want to also share your thoughts?
Yes. My take will be that, as I'll agree with my friend Dr. Hassan, that there is a lot of work that has been done by the government to make sure that governance in the Saccos are checked. because we have a lot, the regulator is there watching all over this, because I think since I joined the cooperative movement, I can count how many SACCOs that went down and when. Those are years back before the regulations came in place. So the issue of poor governance, I think maybe there are isolated cases, but for the governance, I think the government has fixed, the government has come up, given the regulator more power on even other non-people taking SACCOs. They have come on board. And the Commissioner's office has also introduced policies to make sure that they check all these malpractices in the cooperative sector. So I don't believe if one area has just missed maybe something small, does not mean that SACCOs have governance issues. Because I think we are always in meetings, we are also attending these trainings on governance, using these repeatable companies. So I don't think SACCOs, this poor governance. And the mention of a metropolitan, I think that is an individual member who is still complaining by now. You know, sometimes people complain because others are complaining. But when you go deeper, as the chair of, vice chair of CAK has said, let that member get in touch with him and he will sort out that problem. Yes.
Thank you so much. Mr. Malonza, we've answered quite a number of the questions. Is there any that you feel you need to respond to?
Yes, Agina. And one of the issues I want to talk about is governance. Governance is very key to these SACCOs. And as Dr. Ismail has said, Hassan has said, Agina,
yes.
If Police SACCO today, or Arambi SACCO, or Steamer SACCO are put in terms of the largest, I don't think that whether there is any one of those SACCOs can be number 8 in this country in terms of asset base. And I'll tell you, in terms of governance, we had a challenge with the Metropolitan, and what was there was over-expansion. So they came up with so many branches. They missed the strategy, which is no more in an organization. Sometimes you come up with a strategy, it doesn't work. They have gone back, they have been structured with help of SASRA. And I can tell you today, that member, if he gets back to me tomorrow, I'll tell you, he will call you back and tell you that he has been sorted out. We don't have that problem with the movement at the moment.
Thank you, sir. We want to
just quickly to tell you the tenure of directors.
Yes, yes.
It is 3-year term, whereby you serve for 3 years, but you are subject to the election every 3 years. There are some SACCOs which are open, whereby even if you have been working, when you retire, you still continue. So there is no restriction in terms of the tenure of office, where you say if somebody serves for 6 years and leaves, but it is 3 years on rotation, a third of the team, to provide for continuity in the board for ensure that the society continues to grow.
All right, thank you so much. Well, we want to take just a few more questions and then we need to wrap up this conversation. And on our SMS platform, we have quite an outflow of questions. There's a question here, Meshak is asking to the police SACCO representative, our salaries are slashed in the name of savings. Could you respond to that? There's a question here from another person who didn't identify himself. He's saying, ask Mr. Mategwa, what has the society done to shield members during the COVID-19? Interest paid is more than banks at 15% for a 6-year loan. Njoroge Mbogwa is asking that question. A question, this is more of an issue that perhaps we need to think of. When is KDF forming their SACCO? How soon should we expect that? Another one here, Peter Washira, I'd like to ask Mr. Mategwa what happened to Kitengela 2 titles. I think that is more personal. We can skip that one. Another question here from a gentleman known as Gabriel. He's asking to Steamer SACCO, what is the future for SACCOs even after the coronavirus is over? Mr. Mategwa, would you like to quickly take some questions where you've been mentioned?
very interesting when I hear somebody saying about high interest rates. That is a member that we need to have a conversation with him, because I've said here before, maybe he never started with us watching this interview. I started by saying that we have reduced the interest rates on all our loans. Maker loan, super loan, normal loan, emergency loan. We have reduced interest, and some of them we have been reducing by 1.5%. Some of them.
Thank you, sir.
So he has mentioned something about slashing.
Yes.
Slashing.
Make it brief. Make it brief. We are running out of time.
Thank you. We never, you know, slashing. We are not the one paying. There is somebody who pays, and we get money from the exchequer. So we don't slash any money from the members.
Perhaps it's something you can investigate into the future.
With my number, I have.
Okay, sir. Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Hassan. A question on the future of Saccos post-corona. What are the opportunities, even as we take your closing remarks?
That came from Gabriel, if I'm not wrong. Gabriel, I'd like to say this, that I am now 42 years of age. I joined the Sacco sector about 9 years ago. If I knew what I know now, I wish I joined 20 years ago. The Sacco sector and the Sacco industry, there's a bright future for it. I kid you not. When you look at what we've managed to do in the Sacco sector, the kind of things that we do at the grassroots levels, the number of children who have been educated, the people who have got married because of being in a Sacco, the number of houses individuals have bought, education, that is very key for us.
All right.
When I look at all that, the inclusivity of the Sacco sector is not going to disappear. The future is bright for us, as long as, like I said before, we adapt in this Covid-19 era. We take up technology, invest quite a lot in our backend, in our core systems, accept that what made us successful, Stima Sacco is 46 years age, 46, if I'm not wrong, yes. So if you look at what we did 46 years up to date, is it the same thing you're going to do 46 years going forward?
Okay.
The answer is no. Probably we need to adapt, we need to change. We need to learn and take COVID-19 not just as a threat, but also as an opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Mr. Malonza, your closing remarks. What should we expect post-COVID? In under 30 seconds.
Yes, what I can say, I can see a very bright future for the Saccos after post-COVID-19 because the challenges COVID has provided to us gives us an opportunity to rethink our strategy. The Sacco subsector is very, very alive. It is very promising. And as Dr. Hassan has said, I think this is the beginning of the growth that the movement will achieve post-COVID.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mategwa, you have the final word. In less than 30 seconds, what do you see into the future?
The future is bright for Saccos because with the technology whereby our staff can work wherever they are, also members can pick loans on mobile, can go to internet banking. So that will make even more members joining the youth. We are attracting the youth to come and join. With those technology, I believe the Saccos will grow in this country.
Indeed, quite a bright future lies ahead for the Sacco industry, which is going to be a key element of the economic transformation of our country. And to the leadership of Saccos, it is a clarion call when it comes to good corporate management as well as governance. Well, that has been a KTN News special here on KTN News. My name is Abi Agina. We do thank you for your valid feedback. We could not take all your questions, but let's keep the conversation going online. From me and the entire team, we say bye-bye, keep safe, social distance, and always sanitize.